Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Glory Glory Man United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today is James Rhodes from the Man United Muppetiers. How's it going, James?
Pretty good. It's going pretty well. A good day after yesterday, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a great day for all Manchester United fans, though it didn't seem that way when Pedro Neto scored after about 95 minutes.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it was.
where do we start with that game? I'm going to start from the beginning. Um,
Yep.
y- it's not an exaggeration to say United should have been 5-0 up at half time. So many wasted chances. And I was getting at half time at 2-0, I was already getting post traumatic stress disorder from thinking about Copenhagen and Galatasaray. Um, and that nearly happened again, only for the brilliance of Kobe Mainoo at the end of the game, announcing himself on the world stage. And now people are comparing him to Jude Bellingham already. So, what did you make of the game then, James?
Yeah, it's funny in a frustrating way what you said because I thought that the first half it looked a lot more like last season. In terms of how they were playing, in terms of the setup, in terms of the style, it was, we're getting a lot of chances in transition, quickly playing well, and and yeah. But this year, you have this feeling, like you said, at halftime, where I used to feel like it was inevitable we'd come back and win, and now you feel like it's inevitable we're going to throw it away and lose, and and it's like every best effort goes into that. So that is definitely a sentiment we've got to get away from, because it's happened so many times this year, and it nearly did again. It's like 2-goal lead is not even close to enough anymore. It's kind of wild. Something has to improve there, but they could have scored a lot more in the first half. Certainly, probably should have. Created well, strongest team that they fielded this season so far, and I thought it looked a lot more like what we saw last season in terms of how players were positioned, how they were set up, how they were playing. A little less dangerous, a little less open in the first half, but at some point that all kind of changed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I thought United absolutely dominated probably the first 60 minutes and
Yeah.
then inevitably let Wolves back into the game with a contentious penalty, which the VAR Paul Tierney, who was the referee for the Liverpool Chelsea game, where Chelsea were denied, a couple of clear penalties, I thought. So, ironically, he didn't give Van Dijk's foul on Christopher Nkunku the night before, but he watched. Uh, Casemiro's supposed foul on Pedro Neto about 1,000 times before sticking with the on-field decision. Um, and then McTominay scored to make it 3-1. That's much like the Galatasaray game. I think McTominay made it 3-1 in that game as well, and then United threw it away. Um, but remarkable intervention from Minu at the end. I mean, I know Amare Forzan got the assist, but it was an individual goal, really, wasn't it? Nutmegging the first defender, taking a pass to the other. I think Forzan was used as a decoy to take a few defenders away, and then the space opened up for him, and he curled it into the bottom corner. What a moment that was for the young man.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was it was incredible, and obviously that's what his first Premier League goal, and his second goal as a senior with just the goal the other day as well. And what a moment for it. It's just a habit for these young United Academy kids to come through and do something like this, isn't it now?
yeah, absolutely. Some of them have went on to have great careers at United, others not so much, like Makeda, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Um, Already somebody in the comments saying update on director of football. I do intend to get to that in the
I'm
second
sure
part
we'll
of the
talk
show.
about it.
I knew somebody was going to say that. Yeah, so
Mhm.
we'll start with the first goal. Marcus Rashford. Um, he's been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons in the build up to the game, but scored after 5 minutes. Another assist for Rasmus Højlund, lovely hold up play on the layoff. And then rather than smash it, as Rashford quite often does, he placed it, didn't he? It was a fantastic finish.
Yeah, I thought he was very composed. I mean, obviously, I do think there was a degree of wanting to prove a point. Uh, at the same time, personally, when I look at some of the difficulties and struggles. And by the way, as I tweeted this yesterday, I'm obviously if people follow me, a bit of an unabashed Rashford fan. I don't apologize for supporting him the way that I do, but he's got 5 games in a row with goal contributions, and you wouldn't think so based on how things have been said. 3 games in a row in the Premier League with a goal now for United. Um, a big part of it is the change in the system, a change in the structure, the way that the front three are playing together, especially since Garnacho has moved to the right, where Rashford is not so much sitting on the touchline anymore, miles wide. Um, out of the spaces. So he scored a goal from central, right? Top of the box, right in the middle of the goal to the right side. He tends to score more from the middle or closer to the middle than the other areas for sure. But the combinations with Luke Shaw were fantastic. Something we saw so much of last year that we have literally not gotten to see at all this season. We finally saw again those overlaps where it takes only one or two to make a goal every time. It's practically automatic when they can get that going. It's so dangerous, and big part of what worked last year. So I was really happy to see that, and I think that that's a kind of like your working formula to build off of for Rashford and for the front three is that setup with Shaw making those runs, and I think you're going to get chances every single game like that. But it was good to see, and it was fun to see. I think the away fans taking having some fun with the situation as well with the songs and all of that too. And because some people, it's something that has gotten so serious and so there's been so much discourse about it. It's nice to see them all have some fun with the situation, I think.
Yeah, once he scored, then the seriousness was taken out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, hopefully this is the start of him getting back to his form from last season, and he can finish this season strongly, and maybe finish with 15 goals, maybe something like that.
Yep. Yeah.
So the second goal was an overlapping run from Shaw. I think it started off from good play from Garnacho,
Yep.
and then it ended up with Rashford running at the fullback, laying it off to Shaw, who crossed. I think it bounced off a defender, and then Hoyland got the last touch, and it went in. A bit of a scruffy goal, as Hoyland said himself, but
Mm-hmm.
they all count. And you want to see United number 9 get goals like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We haven't got enough of those. So it was a great team goal, that one. And then with so many chances to get the third goal, I think it was turn Maher out, and we'd even had 2 disallowed for offside just at
Yeah.
the end of the
Yeah.
half. It just felt like it was just wasn't going to happen. And then the more chances we missed, the more it felt inevitable that Wolves were going to pull one back,
Yep. Yep. Mhm.
and that's exactly what happened. But yeah, as I said earlier, it was a very debatable penalty. They gave it in the end. Casemiro was on a yellow, so I was very worried that if they gave the penalty, they were going to send him off as well. But thankfully, that didn't happen. I suppose it was such a soft penalty, you couldn't justify giving him a second yellow. Really, maybe that was the thing.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been incredibly harsh to do that to I mean, it's debatable in terms of a foul. I can see why it's called. I can see it. I'd not necessarily agree with it because I think you see a lot more contact and not get called for penalties very often. But they seem to be so focused on because it was like the legs are all out and in the open that it's like, well, foot to leg contact, we're just going to call it a penalty. But yeah, that was a little bit hairy, and I have concerns. I thought there was good moments from Casemiro, but I thought he still looks quite a bit off the pace. Especially at some times in the first half where it practically looked like he was standing still as players were running by him in the midfield. There's a The setup was a little bit better to cover for that. I think there was a little bit more support, and but yeah, I have some worries about Casemiro. I mean, I know he's just back from injury, so hopefully he gets back to it. But he hasn't. I don't think even before the injury, I don't think he looked like himself to start the season either. And I think that's going to be something that has a big impact on the rest of the season. As to whether he can get back to some of the higher performance levels, because we can't go on conceding 2-3 goals a game and expect to get results.
Yeah, we've got wins in the last two games by scoring four in each match, but we've also conceded 5 goals across those two games, which we can't be doing that long term, as you say.
Yeah.
Um, so the third United goal came from a corner. Very rare we see United score from a set piece. Um, McTominay headed it down and into the net, which is what you
Mm,
want to do.
yep.
Like, that should always be the target when you receive a cross from open play or a corner. You head it down and let it bounce up into the net. Make it difficult for the
Yeah.
goalkeeper to save it. So job well done there from McTominay, and then United kind of conceded from their own corner then, and that was
Yeah.
very disappointing. And I have to say, Andre Onana did not cover himself in glory there. And again for the third goal, I felt didn't even he just was a statue really. Even though we can look at Varane, but Onana, I thought he was very poor for both goals, especially the second one. And di- didn't cover himself in glory all evening really. And it is becoming a huge concern. Like, he doesn't even start for Cameroon anymore, isn't it? His cousin who
Mm,
starts ahead of him, who
yeah,
plays,
that's what I heard. Yeah.
um, and I believe his cousin plays in the third tier French football or something like that. But Ten Hag is so loyal to him and brought him straight back in. And I'm I fear that this is Ten Hag's best 11 to start last night, and we want to see as much of that between now and the end of the season.
Yep.
We want to see that 11 start most games, but I fear that there's going to be games where Onana's going to cost us. What do you think, James?
Yeah, it's concerning. I think that the problem. I think there's a couple of issues with it, which is that we seem to end up in so many situations, especially off set pieces. But in many situations where it requires quick, down low reaction saves in order to prevent a goal, and saves you might expect a good goalkeeper to make, but not Onana's strengths for sure. They're not; these are not where he's good. This is not what he's best at, and it's kind of a combination where if we keep playing offensively, that best 11 was really productive. Defensively, it's still obviously, especially as you started making subs or there were any changes at all. But even at some moments in the first half, it left and allowed for a lot of opportunities, as we've kind of seen all year, where teams can really get at us. If we kind of keep ending up in situations where there's a lot of set pieces against us, where there's a lot of pressure, and we invite a bit too much, then his sort of weakness in terms of those quick reaction type saves and things like that are going to continue to come to the forefront and be a problem. Where it's almost like we might as well have a more De Gea style keeper in net, making reaction saves. It might be more beneficial. So it's tricky because it is that combination of how do we want to play, and are we really playing the way that we should to suit his strengths, or are we accentuating the weaknesses, which I think is what's happened quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been saying on this show that um, we should have kept De Gea and not bought Mason Mount or Onana and spent the money on Harry Kane, and I think we would have been a better side if we'd have done that. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. Um, yeah, he's not a great shot stopper at all. Based on what we saw in the
Yeah.
first half of the season. Um, for instance, the third goal last night, I could see, and the second goal even more so, I could see De Gea, saving at least one of those. But yeah, Onana also didn't cover himself in glory when he came for that cross. Was was got nowhere near it, and Martinez had to clear the ball off the line.
Hmm.
Which, by the way, I thought Martinez was absolutely brilliant last night, and how
Yeah.
wonderful it is to
Yep.
have him back in the team. Now, the only concern is that he came off from Maguire and had ice applied to his foot. That's a bit worrying ahead of the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, although I wouldn't worry about it too much. From as I gather it, it's kind of, foot injuries can be weird, but he's also just back. I expect he's going to deal with inflammation and like a little bit of excess swelling for a while, but I don't think there's going to be any problems, or there's nothing injury wise to be expected. I think that was confirmed too, but that was just some soreness and things like that. And I do think he'll deal with that for a while. Multiple surgeries on a foot, they heal weird. It's one of those things, but obviously he looked like he was more back to his level. But I think he's going to deal with some of that swelling and things, especially for a little while as he gets back into a rhythm. But clearly, our best center back, and clearly somebody who makes a huge impact on the team. Uh, just undoubtedly. I mean, if there's one player we could consider from the last couple of years and an extreme success in terms of signing, it's Lisandro Martinez, and he's a there's no doubt that he's going to be healthy top of every list in terms of who goes right into your team to make an impact and assist you in improving upon things.
And of course, when he went off, that was the beginning of the collapse, wasn't it? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and
To
just
be
on that,
fair, having to clear it off the line, we were obviously conceding a few more chances than we should have before he came off. But yes, yeah, you do lose some. There's a lot of changes in there, but it is true. When he's not playing, I think we're better when he plays. That's just obvious. A reality of it. Even within the games, we're better when he's on the pitch, no doubt.
yeah, and I said before the game, Ten Hag has complained that he hasn't been able to select his first choice 11
Yeah,
for a very long time, and clearly that was his first choice 11 last night. And I said there can be zero excuses if United don't do well in this game, and they were dominant for the first 60 minutes really.
yeah,
So it just shows you what a difference it can make whenever you have your strongest team. And United obviously don't have, they don't have the squad of Manchester City or Liverpool, where we lose a couple of key players and we can do without them because we've got quality on the
yeah.
bench. United just don't have that strength and depth. So it was crucial to have our best players on the pitch last night, and that was the main reason why we got the result. Um, So I have to ask you about Ten Hag substitutions. Now I know we won the game, and I don't want to be too negative about it, but not for the first time this season, Ten Hag substitutions had a negative impact on our performance.
Mm,
Um, okay, McTominay scored, fair enough, but he took off the entire front three eventually, and he brought on Forzan, Johnny Evans, and Anthony. And Anthony, um, he tried to take on two players, tried to dribble past two players when we were 3-2 up and defending a lead, and gave it away, and that led to the counter attack which Neto scored from. Was senseless from Anthony. So I was thinking, Ten Hag, he also brought on Johnny Evans for Garnacho as well, and we were being set up defensively to see out the game. But then once they got the equaliser, I was thinking to myself, well, we haven't enough attacking players on the pitch here
yeah,
to make it 4-3. But Mainoo just decided to take on the three Wolves defenders and then curl one into the bottom corner, which you know, you expect that from a forward player, probably not your CDM. You don't expect it from him, but he is just a quality all round individual. He can. There's nothing. I think the only thing that he's really lacking is pace, but as a centre midfielder, that's not crucial. He's just got
yeah.
absolutely everything to his game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was concerned at 3 each because I didn't think we were set up to defend, and we didn't have enough forward players on the pitch at the time. But luckily, with Manu producing that moment of quality, it didn't really matter in the end. But what did you make of Ten Hag's substitutions?
Yeah, they've been really odd for a lot of the season. I think uh, it's kind of um, they're kind of at times a bit of desperation substitutions. It feels like very often where there's a couple of ways you could go about it, which is, do you go for more control? It feels like last season he would have brought on Christian Eriksen to gain a little bit of possession, to hold the ball, to slow the game down, to keep possession, to keep the threat away from our area, instead of kind of inviting it more and more and hoping you can defend it, which is kind of what it felt like. I understand throwing on an extra center happened, very, very late, but yeah, it was, I don't know. They're a bit confusing. Anthony, it's like I said, Phil was asking me in our podcast earlier if that goal, scoring against Newport and all that was start of him improving his form. And I said the problem with him is it's not form. He doesn't have the quality to beat Premier League defenders. He doesn't have the quality to win. He relies on that. So when he plays against lower competition, he can look good. because he'll beat him individually. And that's exactly what cost him in this game against Wolves, giving the ball away, thinking he has the quality to beat these players. He's reliant on it, and he doesn't. Um, he doesn't have that quality for sure to take on Premier League level defenders and win those individual battles. And so it results in a lot of kind of problems, losing the ball in dangerous positions and moments when you shouldn't, and all of that. But, obviously Ahmad is on the bench. You think that could have been a different type of substitution, who's somebody who I think is a little, I mean, we'll see. We have to see a lot more of Ahmad to see what kind of player he is in the Premier League, of course. But yeah, I mean, options are limited too, but it does seem like the setup or the direction of the changes is a bit too much inviting pressure this season. And it tends to do that and invite pressure. And then for whatever reason, we are not a team that can withstand that pressure. When we just give up goals. We always we do this whole year. Anytime we start backing up, we give up goals, and that has not always been the case. I think that obviously under Jose Mourinho, there was a lot of times of inviting pressure where we didn't give up goals, and under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, there was a lot of games where we were able to hold on to leads as well, late in games and kind of hold on to it. And that's been a serious weakness this year, is if we invite pressure, we concede. So you kind of think if that's the case, maybe we don't invite pressure. And that would be my main concerns with the substitutions. In the end, we don't have a ton of options off the bench, but I think players like Christian Eriksen, this is more where they have a use, is to come on and help you control the game a little bit more. We saw that. I felt like that was one of the ways Christian Eriksen made a big difference at times, as a substitute, was to come on and kind of get you the ball, have you hold it, help retain it, and reduce pressure that way. So but I guess we'll see. We will see how it's curious with this stronger 11 when we go into the next game with having all these players back. What happens? Do we continue to make those goal scoring chances? Do we continue to see these defensive problems? Or does it start to really build on it, and can they last 70, 80 minutes before making tons of substitutions that will allow us to maintain that flow for a bit longer?
Yeah, in the recent past, the game against Forest, Ten Hag definitely got it wrong with the halftime substitution of McTominay for Mainoo.
Yes, yes.
Um, and also in that game, he made a surprising decision to bring Amad Diallo on after about 55 minutes or
Mhm.
so. And I thought
Yeah.
Diallo was very good in that cameo, but has not played at all since then, which is, he didn't even get a single second against Newport. Again, Ten Hag preferred Forzan last night to Amad Diallo. I don't understand
Mhm.
why he's done this with Palestri as well, where they get a chance and then you don't see them again for another month. I don't understand that management of a young player. Whenever somebody's done well from the bench, they should then come off the bench in the next game. I feel. How do you see it, James?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. We have seen a few moments of that because, yeah, I did expect that Ahmad would play a bit more, and I think that there's been a little bit of a like it's hard to understand the patterns. How player outside of like scoring a goal, it's hard to see the patterns in terms of how players get selected and chosen. And I think personally, I from what I gather, I think there's a little bit of a lack of understanding among the players as well as to what they have to do to get selected or what they did to not get selected or something like that. And I do think that I understand there's a value in some unpredictability, but at the same time, I think the players need. I think it would help if it was a little more. And with the first 11 back, it's kind of obvious. I think now who's going to be starting each and every week, but the substitutions are kind of wild. I mean, I thought Ahmad did well. Hasn't come on since then. Now Forson's ahead of him. He did well too, in getting the assist and such last night. But it is a bit curious. I'm not really sure. I honestly don't think any of us could sit there and say, yeah, we know who's going to get a chance next, who's going to be coming on next, who's going to be the substitutes. They've been very unpredictable, and sometimes to good result, and a lot of times to bad results this season from a substitution standpoint. So that's something I think he's going to have to settle on a little bit, with the strongest 11, and figure out, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do in each and every game based on the game state and situation. So yeah, I think a little more predictability might be beneficial at this point in time.
Yeah, definitely. You just never know who's gonna come on and who's gonna come off
Yeah.
from game to game. Another proud stat for Manchester United, which I read today, the last three 90th minute winning goals in the Premier League by players aged 18 or younger have come from Man United players. So it's Rashford against Hull in 2016, Garnacho against Fulham in
Mm,
2022, and Kobe Minu last night. So
yeah.
United continue to produce, stars from the academy, and we've got a few of them in the first team at the moment. So
Yeah.
it's something to be proud of. Um, so I want to come on to what you were saying just earlier there about the Casemiro.
Mm,
Now, at the moment, we can kind of put it down to, lack of match fitness, but he was playing like this earlier in the season. He
yeah.
doesn't look like the player that he was last season. He's I was going to say he lunges into challenges, but he even did that last season as well. Like he got booked after about a few minutes in this game with a kneeless lunge, which he didn't have to do. And that's just who he is. I think you're never going to stop him
Mm-hmm.
from doing that. And he takes risks while he's on the yellow as well. But he does look a bit off the pace. And maybe he is starting to age now, and it might be a good idea to move him on in the summer. But let's hope he does recover his form from last season and we can see the best of him. But
Yeah.
I'm skeptical at this point. I don't think we'll see the best Casemiro anymore.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
So I'm going to do some player ratings. So let me know, James, if you disagree with any of these.
Sure.
So the first one's going to be very harsh. Onana a 2 out of 10. Dallo a 5. Varane a 5. Martinez a 7. Probably would have been higher if he hadn't conceded so many goals. I was looking at towards Martinez at being man of the match when it was 2-0. Not that he was to blame for any of the goals, but it's hard to give someone an 8 out of 10 when you've
Mm-hmm.
conceded 3 goals. But
Yeah.
Shaw a 7 as well. So great link up play with Rashford down that left hand side as always. Manu, my man of the match. I thought he was brilliant even before the goal, to be honest with you. So good defensively with his interceptions, so good in tight areas, always picks out the right pass. He really is just like an even better version of Michael Carrick. I think it was Rio Ferdinand compared him to Clarence Seedorf. That's very high praise indeed. But
Mm-hmm.
I wish he wouldn't do that because Rio has a reputation of getting carried away too quickly when it comes to United. Everybody remembers, when United won in Paris under Solskjaer, what Rio said that
Yeah.
night. It was too premature. Um, yeah, Manu a 9, Casemiro 5, Bruno 5, Rashford a 6, Hoyland a 7. Was given man of the match by UK television. I liked Hoyland's performance, but I didn't think he was my man of the match. Garnacho a 5. I'm involved in Hoyland's goal, but a frustrating performance overall for Garnacho.
Yep.
And Ten Hag, um, critical of his substitutions, but we got the result. So, and one of his subs did score, so 6 out of 10 for him. Any changes that you would make to those, James?
No, I pretty much agree with it. Yeah, I pretty much agree with it. It was an interesting game because there's a lot of players I think who played pretty well despite in the end conceding 3 goals. It's just one of those weird games, in that respect. So where I wouldn't put too much on individuals, especially in the starting 11. I think there was nobody who was bad in that starting 11. Casemiro probably the worst of the and Onana. I guess you might have a little bit in, but otherwise, I think everybody was pretty good.
Somebody in the comments not very happy with Dallo's 5 there.
Yeah, that's the only one that stuck in my mind because there's a lot of people who really rate Dallo, thought he had a fantastic game. I think there has been things he does really well, but I said it to some people afterwards, and I know people always disagree with this. I think Dallo is extremely passive at times in the box when the ball is in there. Gets kind of
Mhm.
frozen at the post, frozen at the line when he could prevent a goal. Uh, and I think that happened as well last night. It's something I think he could improve a lot, because a big part of our set pieces, a big part of those bounces around in the box, I'm often seeing him frozen on the line and not challenging the player who's there, getting an open shot in the box. And same with crosses from his side. I think very often he lets it happen too much. And I think that's probably the main weakness in his game. For me, the way I view fullbacks, when I see fullbacks make mistakes in my eyes that lead to goals, I don't like it. I still see them as defenders first in that respect. Um, and that those there's been a lot of games I think this season where Dallow's been decent on the ball, but has still made mistakes that lead to goals. And I think from a defensive standpoint, you can't make a mistake that leads to a goal. You can't do that. I think it's sort of, you still have to take that as your first priority, is to not give up goals. Uh, that's my thought on it. Let me you gave him a 5. So what do you think?
Yeah, is he like there's so many occasions where he has been just caught ball watching and not
Yeah.
watching the man he's supposed to be marking. He done that against Tottenham, against Newport for their equalising goal. He
Yeah.
must have been 20 yards away from their
Yep.
left winger. He just got a free cross.
Yep.
Um, like yeah, last night, yeah, it's debatable. I was actually thinking to myself to go for a 5 or a 6. And I just went for a 5 because I'm not as a bigger fan of Dallo than some people, and I know. But if people want to give him a 6, then I won't disagree with that. But yeah, there are so many flaws to his game, but he has improved, I think, in,
Yep.
in, in recent
I
times.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there are games where he can be really good for the most part, and then he'll make a mistake that leads to a goal. I just think Wan-Bissaka obviously is the much better defender, but Dalot is obviously preferred by Ten Hag because he wants his right back to be more of a wing back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do think we need to sign. I think I've got a feeling we're going to sell Wan-Bissaka this summer and bring in somebody else. Now Frimpong's being talked about. He's a very attacking fullback, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
And with him being Dutch, and if Ten Hag's still there, you could easily see that one happening. But yeah, I do feel we probably will move Wan-Bissaka on and bring in someone who's better than Dallo. I think we need to, because if you look at Manchester City and Liverpool, for example, the quality of their fullbacks, Dallo wouldn't get into their team. So uh, I think that's an area we need to improve. But Dallo, he is doing reasonably well in recent times, to be fair to him. Um, so I wanted to ask you about a few things then, off the pitch. So
Mm-hmm.
we know that Omar Barada is going to be the CEO. Not quite sure when he's going to start that role. I think he's on gardening leave. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't appointed a director of football yet. We are expecting Ineos to get their ratification very, very soon. Could be any day now, as we're into February. So, James, are we any closer to knowing who the director of football is not going to be? Like, I think we know who it's not going to be, Paul Mitchell. But uh,
Yeah.
do do we know who it's going to be yet?
No, we don't. We don't. We really don't. But it is narrowing. I mean, it's funny because it's narrowing and widening at the same time, because one might look at it and say, well, all right, Paul Mitchell, Dan Ashworth, Ward, Dougie Freeman, those 4 main kind of names that had come out at some point, all with English experience and all of that. And then you start kind of crossing those names off, but then you say, but hang on a second. Could it be Berta? Could it be, Nepe from who left Bayern? Could it be this guy from Portugal? And when you look at what happened with Barada, you do get the sense they're not just going for the obvious name, which is a good thing. I think what's extremely promising on that is they're going to make decisions for the right reason. And it shouldn't have anything to do with fan sentiment. It shouldn't have anything to do with who is popular. It shouldn't have anything to do with who people know or who is like. It's good to see that, because it's something that I think at United has not been the case for some time. And that's makes it a little bit unpredictable. The other reason, of course, that it's unpredictable is because they can't do it until this is ratified, which is expected to be next week. And so it's a little quiet there. It's a little bit like, well, they can't really make those offer that job. They can't really make that move until that's done. But then I do think we will find out pretty soon. So in that respect, we're closer. I think we're going to start finding out very soon who the serious names are, and probably who it is, uh, in specific, very shortly. You know, as James Ducker telegraphed said, it's down to two people. That's probably true. And as we start crossing those names off, it's just it may not be those. It may not be like Ashworth or Friedman. It might be, one of those names and somebody we have no idea about right now. And that's always a possibility. So we'll see. We'll see. Barada came out of the blue. This could come out of the blue in a similar way. It could. I think that with it not being someone like Paul Mitchell, then it's less likely to be leaking. When you have people who are in a job, it's probably not going to leak. When you get, if it's someone like Dougie Friedman or Ashworth, it's probably going to be sudden, similar to Barada. So yeah, I am very curious as to what happens. Then there's also the question of when do they join, especially if they are somebody in a job, because do they have to as well go on gardening leave? I mean, you bring someone in from somewhere like Palace, they probably don't need to. I mean, you're probably not worried about competing between those two clubs. I can understand the City United relationship with Barada, but yeah, I think we're really soon to find out now. I think that we are really close to, fortunately, and uh, and I think that's very exciting for all of us.
Yeah, so we're just waiting for David Ornstein's tweet to come
Right.
any day now.
Yeah.
Um, TJ Moran here says, would either of you take Julian Ward? Would you be happy with that appointment, James?
I mean, to be quite honest, I'd be happy with practically any of the names mentioned, considering our history and what's gone on. I don't think, obviously, you want really good people. I don't think it's nearly as hard as it's been made out, or that we've experienced. We feel like it's a hard job because it's the gulf between even any decent director of football and sporting structure and what we've had is massive. And so this isn't a marginal gain, at United. This is a huge gain at United, this thing here. It's going from practically nothing to something. And so when you consider that, despite all of that, because of the fan power, because of the size of the club, because of the history, and because of some of the good work that has been done in the academy, which there's credit to John Murtaugh on that with some of the young players we have right now. We've been able to get second multiple times, won a few trophies. So I think that anybody who is really an established director and gets the remit to bring in players and align a structure with Omar Barada and a style and a direction, I think practically any of the names mentioned, I'd be happy with. But more so, I also think I trust that they're going to make the right choice. So whatever they pick, there's a little bit of confirmation bias in that, but it's good confirmation bias. I think they're smart people. I think they're going to make the right choices. So I'm going to absolutely be happy with whoever they select, whatever that name is.
Yeah, me too. Like you say, all of those names would be an improvement. I think Dan Ashworth is the one that people are probably most familiar with and
Sure.
would like to see
Yeah.
him, but all of them are qualified, unlike Ed Woodward and a few others. Um, and just on that, the current football director, John Murtaugh, does he have a future at the club, or is he going to move on, or is he going to be given another role? What do you think?
Yeah, obviously that's something that's been kind of up for discussion and debate, and I don't think anybody knows in particular. He's been obviously, though, if you look at what's happened, he's been somebody who's been in regular discussions with Dave Brailsford, um, in person at games commonly. He's somebody who, as I understand, was Ineos did lean on pretty heavily even since what was it like since the start of the process, from maybe May or June, when there was like, started thinking we're probably going to get there in the end, that he's been someone they've been reliant on for information on what's happening, on understanding things. He's the most clued in person to the football side of United and has all the information. And there's positives that he's done. I think it's personally, I'm leaning towards that he gets a different role and stays at the club. I'd be surprised if he has like a better offer somewhere else than that, but you never know in football. You never know what the reputation of people are behind the scenes compared to how people might view them and fans might see things and all of that. Because he is an experienced person in football, and maybe there's a director job at somewhere else that he could take that would be an upgrade from whatever he might have at United after the ratification and all of that. So I'm leaning towards that he stays on in a different role. That's what I'm leaning towards. But I don't think he's somebody that they view as really to blame for the way that things have gone. And I understand why, because the setup, the organization, the structures, it's hard to blame anybody down from practically the Glazers or the CEO in terms of what do they do? What are they allowed to do even? It gets so complicated there. And I think that is understood by Ineos as well.
Yeah, I do think John does have talents. He does have
Yeah.
qualities that are useful to football clubs, and there's a reason why he's been in the game so long. But
Yeah.
I don't think he should have been shoehorned into a football director
Sure.
role, just to keep him
Sure.
there. Wasn't he offered a role at Inter Miami, David
Mm-hmm.
Beckham's franchise? But
Yep.
I know that United were desperate to keep him, so give him the football director role. Um,
Yep.
but obviously he caused some uh, controversy, shall we say, with the Jude Bellingham fiasco. With
Mm-hmm.
what happened there with Fergie and all.
Yeah.
Fergie and Gill were there last night. Big smiles on their faces when Mainoo scored.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Good to
they
see.
yeah, Fergie is obviously one of the most important figures in United's history, but you know we have to be honest and say that them two men played a major role in the Glazers coming to Manchester United, and
Yep.
that's what that has to be recognised, I suppose. But
Yep.
everybody has their flaws,
Mm-hmm.
and Fergie gets away with it because of the 13 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups, 2 Champions Leagues.
Just a few
Um,
things. Yeah. Just a few
yeah, yeah. David Gill not so much. He doesn't have the CV to get away with it. Um,
things.
so James Ducker of the Telegraph has also been saying that Ten Hag's future will be delegated to Barada and the new director of football. Um, Now, I've been a critic of some of Ten Hag's in-game management, the tactics, the defending from set pieces, the lack of goals from set pieces, and the substitutions and so on. And obviously, the results this season have been really bad. Finishing bottom of the Champions League group, which they easily should have got out of. Um, I know circumstances have not been easy for him, but I'm still not convinced by him. Do
Mhm.
you think he'll be there in August, James?
I have obviously the same concerns and all of that. I would lean towards that, no, that he won't be here next season. And I say that because, one, it's extremely uh, common for when there's changes in ownership and management for these types of roles to change. Um, Two, obviously, the results and things that have happened on the pitch have not been that great. Three, Ineos want to run things a lot differently than Ten Hag has agreed to in this current role. And it's going to be difficult to accept a minimized or diminished responsibility and diminished role within the club that he would have to accept in order to stay in that role. And then lastly, it's like it kind of more ties into one, but it's just when you're making and when you're coming into a new club and appointing a new director. Does Omar Barada think Ten Hag is the best manager? for United, because it's not about sacking. It's more like this is a new thing. They're going to want who they think is the best person for it. They didn't hire Ten Hag. So even all else aside, is Omar Barada and whoever's appointed as director, are they going to look at it and say, yeah, of all the managers in the world, Eric Ten Hag is the guy who fits what we want most of all? Because if not, then their aim is going to be to get that guy. Is there a possibility that takes longer? That maybe that person isn't available even this summer? Yeah, but you'd think they would do what they would have to get them out if they made that decision to pay the money or whatever it would take. So I lean towards no for many more reasons than just results on the pitch. I think, as I heard it a long time ago, they had intended to. They really didn't want to make a change mid-season, and they intended to see how it goes and all of that. But it is tricky too, because the type of you need to make decisions on this early on, well ahead of summer, in order to properly plan out your window and everything. And there's a limited time to prove you're the right man for the job right now. So, yeah, if we go on a 4 or 5 game winning streak with amazing results and amazing performances, does that help his case? Yeah, absolutely does. But he's also 100%, regardless of results, going to have to accept the role that is offered under Ineos, under Barada, under the new director, and how they want to run things, because it is not a bottom leads the top relationship here. It's not how Ineos will accept things at United. So that is a factor either way, that he would have to accept in order to retain his position.
Yeah, whoever is in charge of the first team once Ineos take over is essentially just going to be a head coach, aren't they, rather than a manager? That's what it seems like. I don't see a scenario where he's going to be allowed to bring in so many players that have previously played
No,
in the Eredivisie.
not gonna
Uh,
happen. Not gonna happen
no,
either way.
yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
So one man who wants to have the job back is Jose Mourinho. I really, really do not see that happening at all.
It's not gonna happen. It's a funny rumor. It's a funny thing, but no, it's not gonna happen, and it shouldn't happen for so many reasons as well. It's obviously not, when you're talking about taking the club forward. It's obviously not. You know, it's not the right thing. It's a funny thing to think about, but there's just no chance that Jose Mourinho comes in as Manchester United's next manager under Ineos. One of the things that is known about Omar Barada, and this aligns with Ineos quite well, is probably one of the reasons they like him, is he's a big fan of the evolution of and the forward progress of football. And I don't think you could pick a more antithetical manager to that philosophy than Jose Mourinho. So, I mean, you just have to logic it. It's not based on any sort of information. It would be the most illogical appointment. And I don't think that they're in the business of making illogical appointments.
Yeah, it just wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
To be honest, I wouldn't bring back any of the post Fergie managers. But if you had to pick one of them, who would it be, James?
It would be quite easily, I would pick Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to come back. I think because you could surround him with proper coaches, with a proper structure. I don't know that you're going to get what you need, but I think that there's a positives that he brings that would be beneficial even for some time. But if there was one manager, it would be him. I don't think I wouldn't want to bring him back either, though. Personally, I have. I'm not saying that he's the guy who's going to win you titles. I don't think any of them are the right man to take us forward, moving ahead. But I think you could get the most positives around and with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, I agree entirely. If I had to choose one of the post Fergie managers to come back, it would be Solskjaer. But I wouldn't. If I could choose anyone in the world, it wouldn't be him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, uh, commentator Navanas, is McKenna on the list of coaches for the summer if Ten Hag's moved on?
It's a good question. I think that he is somebody that has been looked at and there's kind of a watchful eye and admiration for him. I think there's going to be a lot of managers that are looked at in general. Uh, does that mean he's like a top candidate? I don't think so at the moment. I'd be surprised. But again, it's going to be based on that director, because the thing you mentioned earlier from Ducker, that is something I expressed as well. Ineos like Graham Potter. Dave Brailsford likes Graham Potter. Is Dave Brailsford appointing the manager? No. He's going to be hiring a person and accepting their advice, direction, and information on making that hire. Same as he's accepting direction from Omar Barada on making the hire of the director of football. So it's important to kind of align information with all of that and say, well, yeah, I've heard Ineos like quite a few people, but does the director of football like quite a few those same people? Does the CEO like those same people? You want them to be aligned because they're the ones boots on the ground on a daily basis doing the work. So I expect that we will get, if there's a change in manager, and if that is what the new director and such are looking for as we move towards the latter end of the season, I expect that we'll probably get different names than names that we've heard before. Maybe not totally different, because there's not that many managers in football who you would consider for a job like this. There's still, when you talk about guys like Ruben Amorim, he's a manager who's very exciting, who's up, successful at the moment, and is probably somebody to take a step like this. So that I don't expect there's a million names that could come out, but to say who's favored, who's wanted is impossible at this point in time, for sure.
Yeah, and as you say, there's a real shortage of top level
Mm,
managers.
yeah.
Um, and I mean Liverpool are going to be searching for one, Barcelona are going to be searching for one, so
Yep.
it's going to be competitive this year.
Yep.
Clubs might have to make appointments for next season in April,
Hmm.
to make
Yeah.
sure they get their man.
You're
Um,
absolutely right. Yep.
and I wouldn't be shocked if Thomas Tuchel leaves Bayern this summer as well.
Yes.
He's been
Yes.
linked with the job, and he apparently wants to return to England. But I'm not sure his style of football quite fits with Manchester United. He's quite a pragmatic manager. Could you see any else hiring him?
I could see it because he's somebody who is highly respected in football. I don't think he'd be my choice. I'd be a little surprised because I don't think that personally, I don't think he aligns with the ideals, the concepts that they would want to move forward. I think that they want a manager who's really going to be in alignment with a specific way of playing moving forward. And at the same time, you could it's weird. I could see Thomas Tuchel being a bit of a, he's not though, but a bit of a transitionary manager to look at the squad you have and figure out how to get the best out of them. I just don't think that's the direction they want to go. But yeah, I would be surprised. I don't think for me he's the right United manager to say, yeah, we're gonna play, like Klopp has with Liverpool. This is how we're gonna play. This is where we're going. It's gonna be, an innovative and exciting way of playing. I don't see him as that guy. And I do think that that's what they'll want, is somebody to do that, somebody who's going to really, in alignment with the director, take a way and say, we're building towards this way. And yeah, I don't think he's that guy. I'd be surprised if he does come into that job.
I think the dream appointment would be Zinedine Zidane. Do you think Jean-Claude Blanc would persuade him to take over at Old Trafford?
No, I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest, as well. Yeah, I think that it's funny because I think there's somebody at United who really likes Zinedine Zidane, very high up, and I think there have been discussions even in recent years over it. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there's any chance of that. I think I would put that really, really, really low at this point in time, from what I've heard as well.
Yeah, I don't think he speaks English, certainly not fluently, and he hasn't shown any desire to get back into management since leaving Real Madrid for the second time. And he has said that he would like to manage the French national team, but
Mm, yep,
doesn't seem like he wants to manage anywhere outside of teams that he's played for.
yep.
Um, he's not. He won't take anything that he's offered. I would say he's the type of guy that wants to make sure he has a quality team to manage. Who he wouldn't put his reputation on the line to come and work under the Glazers. Like that was never going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. That is totally true.
Um, so. Xabi Alonso, that looks like it's out of the question now with Liverpool having a vacancy. If he has the choice, he's going to go to Liverpool, isn't he?
Probably. I'm not actually sure that they're gonna pick him. That they're gonna end up with him in the end. I would almost be surprised if they did, but and I don't really know why that is, but I would almost be surprised if they ended up with him. But obviously the link there is common. But I mean, I could see him going to Bayern. I mean, it's the Bundesliga, so if he's the best manager in Germany, then Bayern are going to try to get him. That's just how it goes. And I think he's probably the best manager in the German leagues. Obviously, based on results, he is. So I think it's more likely to go somewhere like Bayern, for sure. But the Liverpool chase will be rather interesting in terms of who they bring in. I honestly have no idea. But there's other names. There's people like Arne Slot. There's a lot of possibilities for the manager kind of carousel this summer.
Yeah, even as Kareem here says in the comments, Julian Nagelsmann, you wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah,
United ended up with him.
yeah. I
Um,
wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool ended up with him too. That's for sure as well. Yeah, there's a I wouldn't be surprised if he goes there. That's one that kind of I don't know why that one for some reason feels a bit aligned to Liverpool to me.
and obviously Deserby's being linked, but I that would be a massive risk for me. I mean, even the other night they were destroyed 4-0 by Luton Town, and Brighton have had a few batterings. I think Everton quite recent past as well. They have good spells and bad spells, and that's acceptable at a club like Brighton, but it's not acceptable
Yeah,
at Manchester United. So I think that would be a huge risk. If I had to choose somebody who's currently in the Premier League, who's realistic, it would be the Villa manager, Unai Emery.
yeah.
Um,
I would say the same actually. I think that in terms of possibilities, I think Unai Emery, his style is interesting, and what he's doing this year is obviously it's aggressive at the high line and all of that. But he's an impressive manager. I think he's a really interesting guy. I don't think that there's outside of Pep or Klopp, I don't think that there's a manager in the Premier League who I think is necessarily the right guy. But I think of the rest, he's the best, in my opinion. I agree with you there.
yeah, because obviously Klopp and Guardiola are not realistic options for Manchester
No,
United.
not right
Um,
now, anyway.
TJ here says Sean Dyche. I think he's being flippant with that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so positivity after that 4-3 win last night, and hopefully we can roll on to West Ham at the weekend and get a result there. Now, David Moyes, every time he plays against United, he plays a defensive system. To me, he's shown us too much respect when he does that because I think they've got the attacking
Hmm.
players to hurt us. They don't have to play on the counter attack, but that's what he always does. We can sometimes struggle to break down the low block. So it could be a difficult one, but I know we lost to them away in December, but I think we'll get the job done this time, maybe 2-1 or something like that. What do you think, James?
Yeah, I think we should get a win. I mean, again, I think we'll score goals, but I haven't felt it's hard. If it was last season, it'd feel a lot differently. But it's so hard this year because you just always feel like we're going to concede a couple goals. It's just like that. And so it's like, do we have the scoring yet to outdo that? Can we score 3 goals? Because if we can't score 3 goals, I have no confidence we'll win any game. And it took 4 last night, but usually 3 is enough. And I think
Especially
we'll
with
win though.
Onana.
I do think we'll win. Yeah, I know. I think we'll win, but we felt so many times like, oh, is this the moment? Are we back? Are we inspired? Are they going to build upon this? And then it falls apart, and we look exactly the same in the next game as we had in prior losses. So I don't think I'm going to feel confident about saying we'll win any game until I see 3, 4 games strung together that really show that performance with this best 11, because we started the year with some okay performances and a strong team and lost a lot of games too, and really struggled at times. So I think this is a good test of whether we are looking forward to building something, or whether it's going to be the same old, regardless of the players on the pitch.
Yeah, if we're going to get back in the Champions League race, which I think is unlikely, all our games in February need to be W's.
Yes.
Um, but we've got an Aston Villa away game in there, and that's probably going to be it's going to be tough to get 3 points in that game. Although they've not been in great form of late, really. Obviously Luton away. I think we've got Fulham at home and West Ham at home. But yeah, they're all winnable games apart from Villa away. If we could win all those, then we might have a chance. But United have not shown the ability to win back-to-back games like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
we barely win 2 games in a row, never mind 3 or 4. But we live in hope. If we can win at the weekend, then confidence will start to build. And
Yeah.
with having the strongest 11 now, providing that Martinez is fit at the weekend, then that really helps the situation because Ten Hag really needs to get wins on the board now, especially with Ineos about to take over officially, because he's essentially on trial. But
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and Simon here says, "Evening, gentlemen. I've just tuned in, and I feel I can provide simple insight with one word: infrastructure." Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the 300 million that's going to go on the stadium and the training ground, is it?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yep, that is the idea, to improve upon the stadium, the grounds, the some of all of that that needs work.
Definitely, and we couldn't sign anyone in January due to the profitability and sustainability rules, with which Forest and Everton have already fallen foul to. It's not worth bringing in a new striker, and then getting deducted 10 points a few months later.
No,
So
no, it's
I
not.
understand that one from United. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, James.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Thanks for it.
if everyone please like, share, and subscribe, and James, hopefully I will have you on again in a few months' time, maybe.
Sounds good. I would happy to do it.
And stay tuned to the United Muppetiers for all the latest on Manchester United. And I'll see you later.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye. Bye.